Have you ever noticed how fear seems to show up the moment you're about to do something important? The moment you decide to trust God, fear whispers, "What if it doesn't work out?" When God calls you forward, fear tells you to stay where it's comfortable. When you begin praying for something bigger, fear reminds you of every reason it might never happen. Fear has a way of making problems look larger than God's promises. But here's the truth. Every day you have a choice. You can choose fear or you can choose faith. You can focus on what might go wrong or you can trust the one who holds tomorrow in his hands. The amazing thing is that when you consistently choose faith over fear, something begins to change, not just around you, but inside you. Your thinking changes. Your perspective changes. Your relationship with God grows stronger. And little by little, the things that once controlled you begin to lose their power. Today we're going to explore 5 powerful things that happen when you choose faith over fear every single day. Make sure you stay until the end because the 5th one is often the most life-changing of all. Let's begin. 1. You begin to experience God's peace in the middle of uncertainty. One of the first things that happens when you choose faith over fear is that you begin to experience a peace that doesn't depend on your circumstances. Most people think peace comes when problems disappear, but God's peace works differently. The peace of God doesn't wait for everything to be perfect. It shows up in the middle of the storm. Fear says, "I need all the answers before I can relax." Faith says, "I don't have all the answers, but I know God does." Think about the disciples during the storm on the sea. The wind was strong, the waves were crashing, everything around them looked dangerous, yet Jesus was calm. Why? Because his confidence was not in the circumstances. His confidence was in the Father. Many of us spend our lives waiting for life to become predictable before we feel peace. But life was never meant to be predictable. It was meant to teach us dependence on God. When you choose faith each day, anxiety gradually loses its grip. You stop carrying burdens that were never yours to carry. You learn to trust God with the things you cannot control. And in return, he gives you peace that fear can never provide. 2. You start seeing opportunities instead of obstacles. Fear has a way of magnifying problems. Faith has a way of revealing possibilities. When fear controls your thinking, every challenge looks impossible. Every setback feels permanent. Every closed door feels like the end. But when faith becomes your daily choice, your perspective changes. You begin to realize that obstacles are not always signs to stop. Sometimes they're opportunities for God to show his power. Think about David standing before Goliath. Everyone else saw a giant. David saw an opportunity for God to receive glory. The difference wasn't the size of the giant. The difference was the size of their faith. Many people miss God's blessings because they spend so much time focusing on the obstacle. Faith helps you look beyond what your eyes can see. It reminds you that God specializes in situations that seem impossible. What if the challenge you're facing today isn't there to defeat you? What if it's there to reveal what God can do through you? When you choose faith over fear, you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" And you start asking, "How can God use this for good?" That shift changes everything. 3. Your relationship with God becomes deeper. Faith grows when it is exercised. Just as muscles become stronger through use, faith becomes stronger through trust. Every time you choose faith over fear, you're making a decision to rely on God. And every act of trust brings you closer to him. 4. You become more courageous in your purpose. Fear often keeps people from becoming who God created them to be. It convinces them they aren't qualified. It tells them they're not ready. It reminds them of their failures. It points to their weaknesses. But faith sees things differently. Faith believes that if God calls you, he will equip you. The Bible is full of ordinary people who accomplished extraordinary things because they trusted God. Moses felt inadequate. Gideon felt weak. Esther felt afraid. Yet God used them powerfully because they chose faith over fear. Courage does not mean the absence of fear. Courage means moving forward despite fear. The people who fulfill God's purpose are not always the most talented. They're often the ones who are willing to trust Him. Every day you choose faith, you become a little bolder. You become more willing to step out, more willing to obey, more willing to follow God's direction, even when the outcome isn't clear. And that's where many of God's greatest blessings are found, on the other side of obedience. 5. You begin to live with hope instead of worry. Perhaps the greatest thing that happens when you choose faith over fear is that hope begins to replace worry. Fear is focused on what might go wrong. Faith is focused on what God can do. Fear imagines the worst. Faith expects God to remain faithful. Worry drains your energy. Hope renews your strength. Think about how much time people spend worrying about things that never happen. Fear constantly creates negative scenarios. It fills the mind with questions and doubts. But faith reminds us that God is already present in our future. Nothing catches Him by surprise. Nothing is beyond His control. When you truly believe that, hope begins to grow. Not because life becomes easier, not because every problem disappears, but because you know God is with you. And if God is with you, you can face whatever comes. Hope gives you the strength to keep moving forward. Hope allows you to keep praying, keep believing, keep trusting, even when you don't see immediate results. And often, it's that persistent hope that carries you into your breakthrough. Conclusion. Choosing faith over fear isn't something you do once. It's a daily decision. Some days it will feel easy. Other days it will feel like a battle. But every time you choose faith, something changes. You experience God's peace. You see opportunities instead of obstacles. Your relationship with Him grows deeper. You become more courageous in your purpose, and you begin living with hope instead of worry. Remember this: fear may speak loudly, but God's promises speak louder. Fear may tell you to quit, but faith tells you to keep going. Fear focuses on limitations, but faith focuses on God's power. So whatever you're facing today, make the choice to trust God. Take the next step. Say the prayer. Keep believing, because the God who has carried you this far is not going to abandon you now. If this message encouraged you, take a moment to reflect on which of these 5 changes you need most in your life right now.